3, 2, 1. Love Talk
Greetings, greetings, revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo, secrets and recipes. All is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, come on in, welcome, welcome, wherever you are in the world. Come on in. My phone number is 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. You can also join us, co-host with us here live on screen by plugging in your webcam and your mic and following the link that is now present in the chat. Welcome. Greetings. Come on in. Welcome. Come on in, Ghana. Come on in, Nigeria. Come on in, New York. Come on in, Los Angeles and Chicago. Come on in, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Panama. Come on in. Welcome. Greetings and salutations. All is a blessing. Welcome. Greetings. Greetings, angelic empress. Greetings, beloved. Come on in. Welcome. All is a blessing. Angelic empress, all is a blessing, beloved. All is a blessing. Just send me an email. Oh, you got to email me, beloved. I'm on TV. I'm doing documentaries. You got to email me, and I'll be more than happy to schedule time with you, face to face, right here in the house. Greetings, S. Marie. Greetings, beloved. Welcome. Thank you so much for your continued support. My beloved Valerie Littlefield Taylor. Welcome, beloved. I'm just loving your profile picture. You just glowing. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you, Neophyte Bokur, one of my beloved faithful family member, co-host. Come on in. Miss Rothschild, Samantha. I'm sorry, Shamafia Rothschild. Welcome, beloved Alafia. Infinite currency blessings as well. Greetings. My cousin just popped in. He'll be on screen with us momentarily. Greetings, Baba Owl. Greetings. Praise be to all. Mixed Sage Hall. Welcome, beloved. Thank you for your attendance. Kevin Brooks, Grand Rising, beloved. Grand Rising. All is a blessing. Send me an email. I'll not only hook you up with the song, but I'll hook you up with the singer, writer, producer of the song. Diane Cameron Elam. Come back home to Africa. Yes, it's my motivational music, beloved. Yes, peace, family. Yes, we are home. Shamafia. Fatimaat. Alafia, beloved. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings. Hotep Wu. Yes, come on. Buenos dias. Grand Rising, beloved. Come on in. Thank you so much. I'm grateful. I'm honored. Cheryl O, thank you so much, beloved. Thank you. Greetings, Chef Bougie, beloved. Chef Bougie. Greetings to you and your lovely wife, Orisha. Welcome, everyone. Always humbled, always honored, always grateful. Eshu elegbuana kosi were awo unlo uto ne iwo ada afambo osi obatala mi ita ne ibo ne ilio abane shu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, uncovers fools. That one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter to feed poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. May I ever reach a room. May I ever be accepted. May I ever allow what we desire to come to pass. And we all say Ashe. Greetings, beloved family, community, church, ministry, Ile, house, family, and friends. Greetings, greetings, divine, all blessed greetings and salutations. You are now sitting live with the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagoon, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective. And also co-hosting with me, my beloved cousin, my beloved family and cousin, Oloye, Ifawole, Oladeji, Efuntade, Chief Priest Baba Awo of IleIseseOladeji, also known as Inner Consciousness Spiritual Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And he also will be joining me here today live on screen, on webcam as my co-host as we dive deeper into our powerful show topic for today, power and spirit. Power and spirit. And as always, I like to choose topics that are just specific enough for us to sort of zero in on a particular target of information, but also a little bit open so that we can explore your questions, your comments, your requests, and other ways of looking at the subject matter. Power. What is power? And we can also look at power in a semblance to energy, a power source, an energy source, a usage of power, an abuse of power, and how power shows up in the ATR community, how power shows up for us as we connect to our roots, to our legacy, to our ancestry, to our practice, to our traditions, to our spirituality, how we generate and share and reproduce that power, but then utilize it in a way that's beneficial, not to us just as individuals, but as a community. We all have career and education and life path choices to make, health, wellness, love, relationships. We all have those areas of concentration to focus on individually, but we also, as a community, build power, create power. We also disempower ourselves by some of our choices, some of our behaviors. So I want to talk about that today. And of course, what role power and spirit play together. For many of us, we acknowledge today the great power that is symbolized by the white cloth. We acknowledge the Lord, the King, the owner of the white cloth. But we also acknowledge today and every day our ancestors, Egungun, those mighty shoulders upon which we all now have our standing and our being, not just in our consciousness and our spiritual way of looking at the world, but it's literally in your blood. It's literally in your DNA chain, our eternal and infinite connection to those great ancestors. And we acknowledge the power and the mysteries around and associated with Iyami. And we, of course, and particularly in this season, acknowledge Oloye and the power of the antidote, that ability to heal no matter what the infirmity, no matter what the calamity, no matter what the disease. I was taught that there's a plant, there's a root, there's a tree, there's something in the earth, there's something in nature, there's something in creation to heal all of man's ills. And that's why it's so problematic when we kill off geology, when we kill off nature, when we kill off species of plant, when we kill off species of tree, when we continue to use herbicides, you know, trying to produce that symbol of Eurocentric Western capitalism. That symbol is that green lawn, which could otherwise be better utilized for the production of things that are useful to us. Food, first and foremost, medicine, second most, and then all the many other things that we utilize nature for. Our children are disconnected from nature. Our children are disconnected from the sources of their food. Our children are disconnected from the things that many of us from my generation remember fondly: spending time outdoors, spending time in the air, spending time in the grass, the sand, the water, the creek, the lake, the river, learning to fish, learning to garden, learning to indeed enjoy nature, but learn the secrets and the mysteries behind nature and our connection to nature. And indeed, voodoo is nature. Voodoo is not witchcraft. Voodoo is not magic. Let's be clear. Don't get it confused. Don't let the COINTEL get to you. Don't get caught up in the trend. It is indeed just a trend. And I know it's hard when you're 20 to really get trend, but when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, each time around, you get a deeper understanding of what a trend is. And so things come into popularity, and when they're hot, they're hot. When bell bottoms were hot, they were hot. And everybody was wearing them. When leisure suits were hot, leisure suits were hot. And everybody was wearing the leisure suit. And then it fell out of popularity. It fell out of trend. We learned better. The flammability of those leisure suits was enormous. Just a sheet of plastic, just waiting to go up, you know, and smoke. So things come into trend, things come into fashion, the pet rock, you know, and we enjoyed them in the moment for what entertainment they might provide for us. But voodoo is nature. And I dare say nature is one of the most eternal things about physicality is indeed nature. Nature was here before us. Nature will be here after us. Nature will endure. And so spirit operates in not just our humanness, but spirit operates also in nature. And I was told stories of a time when we were able to communicate with animals and talk to trees and talk to the plants. And that's not just ancient African legend. We find that tradition all around the indigenous world, even in the Americas, the ability of our ancient ancestors to communicate with nature in a way that somehow we lost touch with. And I also might say that this scientific magical system of divination that we operate in Fa, Ifa, Dafa, Afa, many West African ethnic groups and many other ethnicities, is sort of that link in communication between us and nature and the spirit realm. So I welcome you to join the conversation. I'm going to open the mic to my cousin here momentarily, and I welcome you all to follow the link in both the chat. I placed it in the chat. It's also going to continuously scroll on the screen for a moment, and you can also join us, co-host with us. My phone lines are also open at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-divine-prince. And that phone number is 845-277-9143. Please be patient with me. I got a lot of tabs to pay attention to. So sometimes I kind of forget to go back and check that Blog Talk Radio chat box. So please remember to press the number 1 on your telephone keypad to sort of alert me that you're on the phone and you have a question, comment, or request. And I'll be more than happy to allow you in. Greetings, beloved Oloye.
Blessings, Bodo to everybody, Alafia, and I hope everybody is doing well today. I'm happy to be here with you and with everybody, and hope that something I share will be a positive contribution to what we're talking about today.
Asheo, always a blessing. Please, if you will, elaborate. I need you to say a little bit more. Give me an opportunity to sort of go through the chat.
Oh, okay. So today, my cousin picked for a topic of power. And so in regard to power, it is important that in order to facilitate the proper power that we're looking for, one area that I believe that we all can do very easily is in our belief that what we are praying for and what we are desiring to manifest, because it's in our mind and our thought and in hopefully our sincerity, that it's already in motion. So our power is really from our inner, our divine, our divine self. And that when we want to facilitate that power, a lot of times it's all about the belief in that which we're praying for. And yes, going through the motions of what it is, maybe what Orisha we're working with, if we're working with our ancestors, if we're working with Ifa, Afa, Fa, whatever it is that we're working with, Voodoo, then going to that entity sincerely and beginning to practice sincerely and with your firm belief is the beginning of the power working for you. So, we want to, in our talk today, we want to go everywhere from how to appropriately go to the entity that we're using. Not everybody here follows Ifa. Some follow Voodoo. Some follow other spiritual traditions. Not a problem. But at the end of the day, there's more similarity than there are differences in how we can affect and begin and matriculate the power.
Ashe, I absolutely agree. And help me, beloved, speak again to sort of this idea that Africans didn't have quote unquote religion, which often translates into organization, rules, protocols. We have a very Western modern notion of doing work for ourselves, doing work that's very personal, that's very individualistic, often materialistic even. And that disconnection from the village is also missing in sort of how we apply spirit practice and tradition. So help me to speak to that once again.
Absolutely.
This false notion that we don't have, sort of rules and protocols to acknowledge.
Absolutely. For our tradition, the biggest thing is our desire to live in good, what we say, Iwapele, Iwarere. Iwapele and Iwarere, they form the ability to live in a very proper way, in a way that's in alignment with our higher selves. So when we speak of Iwapele, in Iwapele, we know we don't want to be taking somebody else's wife. We don't want to do these things that are not in alignment with goodness, with righteousness. And so there are, of course, in every facet of my tradition, there are those rules, there are those and I don't want to say rules, they are those governing aspects that allow us to live in a righteous way and to live in alignment with what we would say our highest destiny. So we therefore want to live gentle character, how we treat others, how we walk, and how we are in how we operate. All those things give a person the first view of any of our traditions. But just as important as well, it also begins to give us a certain level of the power. Because when people see us living correctly and doing correctly, there's another level of respect that's given. And then that respect also breeds power. Because when things are going wrong and they watch how you operate through these things, they say that man is maybe powerful in spirit, powerful in whatever the case might be. And then you find that they will come to you to find what it is that keeps you in that place of balance. So part of power is also balance. Balance in how we deal with things. Balance in when things are going extremely difficult. How do we overcome the difficulties and kind of endure through it? That's power. Power is so diverse. It's found in so many different ways. But how we live, how we think, how we speak, how we walk, how we deal with people is a very important form of power.
And I want to speak a little bit more to that same question that I presented from a voodoo perspective. The protocols, the directives, if you will, are embedded in the do,
yes,
in the Odu. And
right.
We accept that our culture was passed down verbally, that we taught and shared and instructed and repeated and harmonized our experience and passed that down verbally. But indeed, this system of Fa divination was also passed down verbally. And along with that, the rules, the protocols, the taboos, the things should be concerned about, the plants, the medical conditions, and what herbs and plants and airway should be thus applied.
Yes.
From a Western concept, I think it's more of a potpourri of what smells good and looks good and feels good to you in the moment. We might even have some semblance of an association between the items going into the pot symbolically. We want love, so we might put the rose in there. We want prosperity, so we might put beans in there. But we have lost connection to that 256 Odu system that really is the foundation of many West African traditions, such as Ifa and Voodoo, that fall under that sort of umbrella. So again, there's this idea among some, and particularly of a younger generation, that we kind of do what we feel, we kind of do what we want, we kind of do what looks good. I can scan some websites and read a few books and kind of throw that into the mix. And I think we do ourselves a disservice, and particularly the younger generations and those who come after us, because it's in that behavior that we continue to lose connection to the root of our tradition, which indeed is these 256 Odu. Beloved, people are often amazed when they really come here to the house.
Yes.
And they have sort of a TV expectation of what voodoo is and what it's going to look like. And then they see those traditional implements associated with the divining board. Yes. And when I go into that, for me, I literally go into a trance. It doesn't mean I'm possessed or I start, eyes rolling back, but I go into sort of a trance, when I even listen to the Babalaw's chant, Odu, there's a rhythm there, there's a cadence there that feeds trance, that pushes you to a certain degree of trance. And I believe that purpose is to allow the diviner, the reader, to remember and receive not only the diversity of verses associated with the signs that lay on the board, but also to give that advice that each individual reader and each individual client might require. Yes. We can memorize verses just like we memorize Psalms and Proverbs and hymns and Book of Revelation scriptures, and I can still to this day quote scripture with the best of them. I can still spout a hymn or gospel or two every now and then, you know, when it hits my spirit. But just the bedrock, again, of these traditions is those stories and those proverbs embedded in those traditions. And before I pass the mic, I also want to note too that as I look at the diaspora and we think about stories like Burr Rabbit, you know, and how that was then turned into cartoons. It was appropriated into cartoons and other stories and fables. It reminds me of the Louisiana folk tales, Lapin, Bouquet, and other Creole stories in the French dialect that have that same cadence, that same rhythm, but also are giving you sound advice, sound wisdom, shared experience of your elders and those who came before. So there's a marriage that happens with our experience as a practitioner and then our ability to memorize and internalize those odus in a way that allows us to be effective in a modern context.
Correct. Absolutely. You know, when we're talking about the odus, and it gives us the prescription for anything and everything that we might be going through in our life, and the opportunity to clean it, correct it, and move forward beyond it. And, you know, I believe I shared with everybody in the past that when you're going through different things, the way that Ifa works, at least for me and with me, within me, is like when you go into Odu, it gives you the various things that are happening in life. And then it begins to give you it begins to probe and poke into a lot of different areas. And when it does that, then it becomes to give you the appropriate prescription. And therefore the prescription and the medicine that helps you to change your situation and your scenario. That in itself is power. Because when you can go into scripture, go into the verses of Ifa, and Ifa is just pinpointing to you, not just what you came for, but a whole lot of other things you might not have been aware of. And then once you follow what Ifa shares with you, you start seeing things change around your life, sometimes so greatly that you just are amazed. You're amazed by how your life has changed for the better, just because you submitted yourself to listen to what Ifa gave to you in counsel, and then you took it step by step to follow, and now your life is at a totally different place than maybe what it was a month ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. That to me is divine power.
And when power and spirit come together, there's no greater demonstration than that. That's the magic that people are indeed looking for. You know, to get wise counsel, to get wise and sound advice, you know, from an elder or practitioner, and then to have them assist you in not only making your goal, but avoiding so many roadblocks and hurdles and other things. It's just amazing what we as individuals would avoid if we really took the advice of sound parents, sound elders, those who came before us, who say, "Oh no, you don't want to go that way. There's danger that way. You want to go to the right." And we time I sort of share this with my PT instructor earlier today. We live in a time where we are very individualistic. People want to do their own thing. No one wants to take sound advice. No one wants the other person's opinion necessarily. Or we, you know, feel a sense of insecurity about sharing an opinion, especially in social media, you know, where any random person can come through and, you know, troll, you know, whatever feeling or emotion or thought you might be sharing, you know, in a moment. So there's this, you know, resistance to going into what many younger generations see as organized religion, a binding type of religion. Oh my God, I've got to memorize this. Oh my God, that's a lot to memorize. I had one of my friends post the other day that there was no way anybody could memorize, all this information. And you and I both know personally, Babalaos, Awos, Arabas, Honans, of various age, often 50 and over, who can contain a great deal of information,
Yes.
in their memory. And I think that's not just what we eat, how we live, the environment that we indeed grow up in. But I think it also has a lot to do with that rhythmic, harmonic connection to information. So there's a reason I can't get the hymns out of my head this many decades later from trying desperately to do so. Because we as people, we're connected to rhythm. We're connected to harmony. If you can put something in a limerick for a child, they'll memorize it much quicker, much faster than if you just say, read this book and memorize it. We need that motion. There's also physical memory that's attached. So the tapping of the divination board, the motioning with the Ifan and the other items that might be present during the divination, there's all those things that go into making this combination of rhythms and emotions and incantations that indeed create and generate a power. My third eye opens and the board almost looks like a black hole to me. Almost turns into an open space for me. Sometimes I even close my eyes and I see stars and I see galaxies and I see outer space as the Odus are falling onto the board. Sometimes I see imagery before I start remembering what text that I have already memorized or assigned. And depending on the client, the person that's sitting before me, that imagery will move around in relation to what the person came to me to sort of look deeper into. I think you can't have power without spirit. And the spirit. Even if we think of misuse of power, wicked power, Hitler for that matter, who had a well-documented record for not just himself, but the government delving into the supernatural, delving into the realm of psychic reading and spirituality and seances. And as far as we know, they probably looked into Ifa too. We just haven't seen that record. But we know that power and spirit have to go hand in hand. Yes. And so you have to draw your power from something greater than yourself. Correct. That's another issue around the challenge about religion.
Right.
Because religion often points to a particular god, deity, power, with the name on it, with the label on it. But indeed, you have to be pulling your power from somewhere. It could be as simple as from light or darkness. And those, that combination of spirit and power is what brings about true manifestation in our reality, in our world. Somehow I try to look at things on many levels before I bring a topic to the show. They aren't always as general and simplistic as they might appear in the wording, but I look at how that manifests in many ways. Earth science, how is power or energy created, generated? And we know that all the power that exists in the universe was created at the Big Bang. All the power that will ever be is already here, but it is moved around. We manipulate that energy. We manipulate that power to create and recreate realities that mirror our best interest. Spirit, I want to also open up the conversation a little bit to some of my ancient alien theories. Spirit could also be, again, these alien interventionist, sort of moving society ahead, moving society in one way or the other in terms of our development. Some people, I don't know how familiar you are with this theory, but some people believe that humanity is where it is right now in terms of its advancement and its progress because of some outside intervention. So of course, religionists have accepted that it's God or it's Jehovah or it's Allah or it's Olodumare, or, it's the great creators. But you have a newer generation of diverse age who now also has made room for outside intervention from advanced beings, from outside our cosmos or outside our understanding of the universe. Some people think that the Orisha are cosmic. What's your opinion about that?
The Orisha of everything, the Orisha are beyond our particular, even if we believe that the Orisha walked the earth and then transcended, well, our original is the Orumile. And the Orumile are those that Olodumare descended to earth in order to facilitate the building of our of earth as it is. Obatala, Oshun, Ogun, and others that came down to begin the process. So therefore, we can easily say that the Orisha or the Orumile are that because they came from heaven down here. The story of Obatala coming down, of Ogun making the chain that got him the rest of the way, that when he climbed down the tree or when he dropped the hen or pigeon down with the five prongs to and the dirt that he brought down from heaven. All those elements, we can easily say that they we can easily say that it's from a different place, a different source. And the easiest way to say it is if we truly believe that we are made in God's image, if we truly believe that we're made and we are God's here on earth in ourselves, then from the Orumile down and the birth from Obatala developing humankind, then yes, we are, we can say that.
And sometimes I'm a little challenged at explaining, particularly to the beginner, the difference between Irumale and Imole. And it's my understanding that Irumale, forces in nature that created Earth, the primordials, if you will, and that the Imole, forces of nature, are light, maybe even predated Irumale, but just light itself. And when we look at, again, science, quantum metaphysics, we understand when we break everything down to its lowest common denominator, it's really vibrating light. Molecules, protons, neutrons, atoms, vibrating light. So how do you teach and explain what Irumale and what Imole is? And in relation to Olodumare, how do you explain that in your house?
That's a really good question, because Orumile for me, being that which was those who were sent down here and the stories of them building and growing, they're still made of something. They weren't just air coming down here and then air is developing human beings and such. So, it's very similar to what you just said. It's nothing really, really different. We have to have both sides of the equation in order to come down in form, So what you're saying is coming down in form. And then in coming down in form, then the building of society or the earth as it is within the confines of everything from Iwa, everything from how, we say that Ogun built the structure of the people, right? So from all of those elements, they work together.
The Goddess Initiative says that she feels like if you can believe in God, any God, you can believe in alien forces.
Absolutely.
The science confirms it, and spiritually, at least to her, it is science. And I agree. I had visions and had downloads of information. I like to call them downloads of information when back in my 20s, when I was doing a great deal of deliberate meditation with quartz crystal, amethyst crystal, citrine, etc. I received a great deal of what I believe to have been information about the past and about the condition of the worlds, plural, the worlds that predate the world that we now live and exist in. You know, the indigenous Americans say that the world has been destroyed and recreated at least 3 times before. And so I've always believed and had an understanding that, one, there were aliens for sure, that there is life form, advanced life form outside of our present awareness in the universe, and two, that they had intervened. Some would say manipulated. I like intervened in the development of humanity, of moving us from Cro-Magnon, from more ape-like hominins to sort of these advanced beings that we are now. And even at my age, in my particular generation, I've seen a time of radio, black and white TV, color TV, cable TV when that was brand new, internet, you know, and I've seen an advancement of technology in a very short period of time, historically a very short period of time. There's been no other time in our known history where humanity has moved forward at such a pace in technology, in math, in medicine, in science, as we have done today. And so it's hard for me to believe that that's somehow natural selection. It's hard because I believe nature to be science. I believe nature to be God. I believe nature to be as complex as a quartz crystal, even unto itself. So it's hard for me to accept that it's just random and somehow promoted. Just the condition of our earth and where we are in the sky and how we're protected from solar rays and from asteroids and from all kinds of things that could really wipe us out, you know, within a matter of moments. I believe there has to be orchestration behind that. And so voodoo, from my understanding and how I was taught, indeed the primordials, because they're called by different names depending on what ethnic language we're going to speak. So I'm just going to speak English. The primordials indeed have been not only molding us and recreating us and remaking us for advanced life here on this planet, but also preparing us for advanced life other places in the universe. So when we think about our governments and why are they spending more money in the sky than they are on the ground? Why are they investing more in outer space than they are in your children and your children's health or survival or education or medical care? So there has to be a universal knowledge in the world that there's something beyond us, and those powers that be, we're going to talk about power from a different perspective for a moment, would use that, would manipulate that to their best interests. I've always felt there's been a race to sort of beat us to the sky, or at least be prepared for what might be coming from the sky. And Farrakhan, some of you are familiar with this. Farrakhan has been teaching aliens, if you didn't know, since the 1980s. Some of my younger listeners. Farrakhan believes in aliens, talked about the mothership, talked about some of the things that I'm talking about, you know, right now. So what's the race to space? And is it to beat us to something, or is it to protect themselves from something? You know, and how does that play in how we use personal power every day, you know, in our own journey. I know I said a lot. I always do. So feel free to jump in there, beloved.
Oh, that was a wide range of stuff right there. So yeah, I mean the nation has taught the mothership since the beginning from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and so you know there's the story of Minister Farrakhan talking about at a point in time he actually witnessed Elijah Muhammad and possibly Master Farad Muhammad in the mothership. There's a lot of things that they talk about within that. From a belief standpoint, yeah, the United States has always had history, and not just the United States, right? We're talking about it was always the race to see who got to the moon first. It was the race to see the investigation of the other planets by the United States, Russia, China, whoever else, because they're always looking to see where there's life or where there was a semblance or whether there was life in a place before. They're looking to see what are the natural resources in those places, right? When they get on and they got the suit on, they're looking to see how gravity is in those areas. Sometimes sometimes I think that they know that this place right here, this earth is going to come to an end, and they're going to wind up seeing and where people can go thereafter. Probably the richest people, but where people can live thereafter. Which areas have the temperatures to that can facilitate life and all of that. Sometimes I believe that that's what they are looking for. Where's the next thing of life going to be, and is there life in some of these planets?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's the next neighborhood we gonna gentrify?
Yeah,
just maybe it's on another planet,
right?
So then
right.
we would have to consider then that power might also be knowledge, information,
Absolutely.
what you know, and then what you do with that information.
Correct.
I have some avid readers in my life. I have some avid researchers in my life, and they're searching and they're looking 24 hours a day. But what do we do with the information? How then apply that information? And how does that show up in terms of power and power and what power looks like individually, but also as a community, also as a nation of people, the access to information and how we use information. So I think that also is an area that we can indeed look at. I have another cousin, he might actually be listening, who has been talking about the family being robbed by the Royals and the Bushes and the Bilderbergs and various aspects of what many of us consider conspiracy-based theory. And often it just went over my head. But he had somehow organized a meeting with Thomas G. Reynolds, Regional Trust Director, Great Plains, Midwest, Southern Plains, Eastern Oklahoma, Eastern Bureau of Trust Funds Administration with the US Department of Interior. He somehow got a meeting with them today. And so if you are a descendant attending a meeting that has been coming 150 years plus with trustees over 40 acres and a mule, AKA allotted lands under 5 civilized tribe treaty, Friendship, Guadalupe, Hidalgo, and Pinckney Adams Onus treaties, land provisions, and then he includes this information about Thomas G. Reynolds below. And so I say that to say there's so much that we still don't know. So we seek ancestry, we seek DNA, we seek lineage and heritage, but there's still just so much we still don't know about who we are and the power that we possess, the power that's within us, but also that outer power that might be due us, that might be owed to us. When we think about power and government, when we think about power in politics, often when we think about power and money, now we look at power from a different perspective. Some of us look at that from a place of corruption. You know, some of us believe there's nothing political that's not corrupted. And so we turn off to that aspect of our power, which leaves us vulnerable to laws and rules and protocols and how we're treated, you know, and how we're forced to live. And so we're often playing catch up to follow those rules, to pay those taxes, to acknowledge Caesar and Caesar's government. And we're in a deficit in terms of learning our own self-governing rules and protocols about how to live and amass power from a village perspective, which again is embedded within the odus of these traditions. And I've gone out of my way to sort of explore this from not just a Yoruba perspective, obviously, but from an airway perspective, a Fon perspective, and a Khan perspective. And as you said earlier in the show, there's a consistency there. Might be different language, might be different neighborhood, might be different family. They might have some different activities associated with what's being said and pronounced. But those ideas, those philosophy, those morals, those values, those codes are consistent there. And so that has always been in my mind what saves us, what gives us freedom, that power. And so we've tried political power. We made some strides there. We've had the Black president, and now we got the, you know, the multiracial vice president. We've tried finance power to some degree, and there's some successful, you know, Black African Americans who are successful in stocks and financing and in business. We've tried power everywhere except here, except ourselves, except that which is in our blood, except that which we pull from. And so that's why I push ancestry as a greater part of what I do so strongly. Because we are modified and healed and reprogrammed and recharged, then there's nothing that we can do in terms of power and spirit coming together to really create a greater reality for the generations that come behind us.
Yeah, that and being able to teach a person, because true power begins for us in Ori. In Eje it said, you know, it says that Ifa says that the Ori is the one that directs our body to the manifestation of our thoughts. So if it directs our body to the manifestation of our thoughts, it is the thoughts that we have. It's the thoughts that we manifest that give us the beginning of power. So we have to then mind our thoughts. We have to put our thoughts into alignment with that which we want, what we desire, and what we want to embody. And when we can do that, and we really focus and have intentionality on that, then we begin the power within our personal selves that will then start manifesting out to the community as large. We have to start with our own Ori and developing our own inner power.
Absolutely. I feel like I need an applause track. I might re-add that. Once upon a time, I had all kind of sounds that I would play during the course of the show. Yeah, that absolutely requires an applause. And unfortunately, that's where, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on where you are in your journey, that's where the work is. That's where the work is. And we're often running to avoid just that very thing. If we can take a shortcut to the next destination and not have to consider, you know, the work, it's something about humanness that makes us take that shortcut. But your religion, your philosophy, your practice, sort of your way of reaching that goal, that's where the work is. It's how we think, it's how we create and recreate our reality as gods, a demonstration of God in this clay this clay vessel. So how we perceive pain, how we perceive work, how we perceive challenge, how we perceive growth, how we perceive prosperity, it's all rooted in our heads, in our mind, in our consciousness. And there are distractions that say, oh no, but it's out here in ownership. It's out here in having this stuff. It's out here in having an ability to buy, or to entertain, and enjoy immediate gratification, in the moment. And again, that changes how we look at power.
What's scared the enslavers? What scared them? The first thing that scared them was when they came, they saw a level of power with the spirituality of our forefathers and ancestors. They had to break that up. They could not allow for that spiritual power to continue to manifest. Number two, they saw that there was such a level, I want to say of Iwa, but such a level of development in the cultures, right? That there was a way of living. They knew that there was a structure, from the chief or the king on down. Everybody knew their role in their place. So therefore, that led to a very powerful, a very powerful, what would you call it? Community, society. So now you see these things, and when people conquer another people, the first thing that they take away is military, right? They take away their ability to fight. So they take away the spiritual ability. In many of the ancient traditions, they weren't doing Christianity, and so therefore the spiritual system that they were seeing, being a very powerful system and in a deep connection directly to nature and to spirit, they had to get rid of that really fast, or else they would never have been able to control those people that they enslaved. So where's the power? The power sometimes is in people's control. What's the power of the Congress and the Senate, the president, and anybody in politics? They have the power of the pen to control how society is going to move, how it's going to be, the rules and laws that people are going to have to abide by. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, and so that's why often statuary, monuments, temples, libraries were often destroyed because they were seen as power sources.
Absolutely.
Ways for people to refuel, repower themselves, even after, battle, even after some calamity. And so that's one of the things that they still continue to destroy. One of the most disturbing things for me about some of the Islamists is their destruction of historic libraries and historic archaeological sites, particularly in Africa and into the Middle East, and thus destroying history and evidence of our history, for future generations. And so that information then has to be relearned, because energy is infinite. So that information has to be then relearned another way, through another source, and often requiring a greater deal of time to then recapture that which is being lost. So whether we're looking at the colonists or the Islamists or any military force or power or government that's seeking to overtake and then dominate that which they hold belief in, is something that is most immediately targeted. So it's a reality for us to discuss housing and economy and healthcare and how our children are being educated, and the like. But it often don't leave us a lot of time in this culture and society to really regain inner power, inner strength. We often have to take a retreat for that, a rehab for that, an escape for that. And even that, depending on who you are, requires money, requires resources. Everybody can't leave their job for a month to go take a retreat. So there are many ways that this power, whether it be through information, whether it be through money, whether it be through resources, is manipulated so that a small elite group maintains control. And it's in our community, it's also outside our community. We fight the white man, we fight the government, you know, but it's also within our own communities. Because as my cousin said, if we don't address the head, then the body is guaranteed to fail. If we don't address the head, then the body has no direction. So we've got to start with each individual. You got to seek healing. You got to seek clarity. You got to be determined to be the one in your bloodline and your family that's going to end the generational curse. For those of you who understand my voice, you got children. You got to be the one in your family that says, well, my children's going to learn it differently.
Right. Yeah.
It's not going to be exposed to the old way. I'm going to teach them the new way. And yeah, that's challenging when mom and dad are still learning the new way for themselves.
That's
but
true.
Let them learn with you. Bring them along on your journey. I have whole families working with me, beloved. The husband, the wife, the kids, the grandma, the uncle, the best friend next door, whole families. And it swells my heart. Because when I was younger, you know, growing up in that evangelical, sanctified, oppressive, cult-like environment, I didn't think there were any other options. And that notion of hell was a crucial key used to depower us. Even if you didn't accept anything else in the religion, many of you embraced hell and the idea of hell. And that if I don't follow through, if I don't blindly, you know, go to church on Sunday, if I don't act like I'm still, you know, a participant in this system, I might be going to hell. And some of my clients are still walking that fence. It's an old dude that says something about cats walk on fences, not humans. Cats walk on fences. And so, you know, they still going to church, they still going into mosque, they still going to the, you know, the Jehovah's Witness temple. And then they sneak in to see you.
That's right.
Wow. And we got to move beyond sneaking. You know, I love my mother. I love my mother. And her ability to not only go deep into her own religion, she's an evangelical Christian, but her ability to open her third eye, her ori, and see that comparison between what you and I practice. That's not foreign to her. That's not threatening to her. That's not fearful to her. That's not witchcraft to her. Yet those of us who say we love Orisha have bought into the Western notion that this is witchcraft, that this is not religion, that this is just an extension of paganism. You know, and so I don't. Obviously, I don't accept that. I don't teach that. I never have. You know, and it's a thing that I have to repeat often. That this isn't magic. This isn't witchcraft, but it's indeed science. Indeed, a practice that is a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
I invite someone else to talk because I know I can talk, but I invite somebody else to talk. And I don't want to put my cousin under a whole lot of pressure. It's right at the top of the hour. So please do follow the link and come on in with your webcam. The Goddess Initiative, I want to see your lovely face a little bit more often. Neophyte Bokur is probably driving a truck right now or loading or unloading. Otherwise, I'm sure he would be present. Many people listening on the phone lines all over the world. And I'm always grateful for my Blog Talk Radio app. It gives me geographic location, cousin, and percentages of where we're being listened to. And many people listen to us, like my local neighbor, Troy, who was in the chat just a moment ago. Many people listen to us in their workplace or while they're working. or while they're doing other things. And I'm appreciative of that. It means that we're reaching a deeper level of consciousness than just entertainment.
Absolutely.
We're going a little bit deeper in emotion and in thought, with those who do enjoy listening and participating. But when I look at the map, I'm just amazed at the interest in Voodoo and Ifa and ATR from all over the world. It's present modern time. It's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing. And so
I think it's wonderful.
So as we see churches continue to go abandoned, some of y'all have great credit, some of y'all have a few dollars. We need to be opening ancestral centers. We need to be opening community centers that allow space for ATR religious practice, spiritual religious practice, to be like repotting, replanting, to be recruited into our communities. Anthony X says true power is in unity. If we can divide or separate any people from their God or spiritual birthright, you can easily conquer them. I agree it's in unity. That brings to mind economy, success, people of wealth, if you will. And do we request anything of them? Is it required of them to give back, to do for themselves? When we look at the Oprah Winfrey's and the Tyler Perry's and some really well-made members, is it our right to ask them to do more for the community? Is it our right to ask them to invest? In a Western world, we say no. Everybody has a right to make their choices, to do what they want with their money, shop where they want with their money. But then, as Anthony X said, true power is in unity. So you have political parties coming together, economic parties together, financial parties coming together, people who come together just for Married to Medicine. I watch that show because there's often these little financial parties going on in the background. I don't know if y'all familiar with that reality. It's a new reality TV show. Black folk, degreed, doctors degreed, but much of it, they're talking about this little group that has this money that they're investing in land and in properties. And that's what drew me, to the show. So again, being an individual, one person who understands Fa, who has accepted Ifa, who seeks the guidance of the Awo, the Babalao, the Oloye, the Elagun, the Hogan, the Mambo, and again, does so for self. Fix my relationship, fix my marriage, help me with my career, help me with my legal case. We've got to move it beyond that. It's got to replace, it's almost hard even for me to say it, but we have to say it. It has to replace church. It has to replace the mosque. It has to replace these centers in our communities that haven't given us what we need right now. And I'm not suggesting that the church was not beneficial in our history. Indeed, it was, particularly in slavery. We used church to organize. We used church to come together. We used church sometimes to discuss things that wasn't about church, just like the Bois came on in Haiti. But I think things like a trend have their moment, and then you've got to grow. So we've got to continue. We were Negro, we were colored, we were everything. We were Black, then we African American. We've got to evolve our practice along with these titles and names and labels.
Sure.
And so that's why I say we've just got to stop with the church. If you're not happy, if you're not uncomfortable, if it didn't serve you, you've now embraced Ifa, you've now embraced Lukumi, you've now embraced Santeria, to just stop with the church. And it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be a war. It didn't have to be a battle. Bruh, some families find it, you know, depending on your family, depending on your mom and them, that's where the pressure comes in. Boy, what is that you reading? What's that you got on your head? You know, what those beads mean, you know, and when we don't have the language to speak truth to who we are and what we're doing and where we are on that journey, then you absolutely can't explain it to the next person. I learned that in my own journey. I can remember trying to explain crystals and Oloye and Voodoo to my mom 35 years ago, and she thought I was crazy. She thought I was worshiping rocks. She thought I was off in witchcraft, you know, until I myself knew what I was doing. I was, and had the language, and then I could explain and make things make sense. And it didn't mean we're here to convert, because unlike other religions, we don't have a mandate to convert people or to prophetize or, you know, to make everybody practice our tradition. But however, if we can't speak it without violating taboos, without violating, you know, the secrets of the traditions, but if we can't explain it and speak to it in a way that others can receive, then that also limits our ability to sort of expand this consciousness into our communities. Because again, I'm fighting the black witch thing every day.
Right, and everybody has to understand, in the tradition, every Orisha has distinct things that they do in the practice of that particular tradition. So for some, you know, if you are practicing, let's say, Obatala has its own tradition. If you're training, practicing Ogun has its own tradition. Eshu, its own tradition. Every one of the Orisha has its own tradition to follow, own practices. It's like its own entity unto itself. And so now in practicing those particular aspects of that tradition, then that brings you the power within that realm to facilitate the, you know, whatever you want to receive out of that particular Orisha. You know, so when we initiate in, let's say we initiate to Obatala, then we must do the things. We must not eat the foods. We must not, you know, if we can, wear the colors that are against. It's mostly white. It's all white. You know, here in America, we might have difficulty doing that, but you know, out in Africa, they wear all white when they're Obatala, you know, practitioners. So we have to look into what Orisha we're dealing with, and then to get the power out of that Orisha, to be working with that Orisha in the appropriate way.
Yes, I agree. And people making random comments in the chat that don't make any sense. I'm just putting you on mute. I've gotten good at that. I know how to do that now. And thank you, the Goddess Initiative, for correcting me. It wasn't Married to Medicine. It was Marriage Huntsville. It's that Huntsville show where these black families, these black professionals have come together and have this parcel of land that they're building economy with. And that's a major issue, a major hurdle that we are going to have to address. Some of our community takes it from a purely political stance. And so they're not very religious at all, but they're only concerned about black power, black empowerment, black economy. But even those of us in the religious sector, the spiritual sector of ATR, have to begin to look at infrastructure similar to those of the other world dominating religions, that will allow our traditions to not only thrive, but again, survive, into the future. We have this notion that, it all should be free, and your time should be free, and your service should be free, and the remedies should be free. And, and that's never been true, by the way. That's never been true. Even in the indigenous world, I might have had coconuts, you might have had corn, next one might have had textiles and fabric. There's always been an exchange, and it's really part of the rules to exchange, present an offering. It makes you an even deeper part of the divination. By doing so, it's just church and religion that's got us mixed up about spirituality, religion, and finance. And then we developed this prosperity ministry. The prosperity ministry came along about the late 80s, going into the 90s. And so now it's safe to talk about money in church. It's safe to talk about, investing in relationship to Christianity. But again, when we look at Ifa, Voodoo, indigenous practices, and particularly north of the border, we don't have that community dynamic in place that's allowing us to grow and flourish in the way that they're doing in Cuba or in Brazil or even in places like Panama or Venezuela, in terms of the demonstration of indigenous traditional practices as an alternative to world dominating religions.
True. Even in the prosperity gospel, I go back to like Reverend Ike, and there was somebody, I forgot that gentleman's name, that was in the 50s that made it real popular too. I can't remember his name, but there was somebody that was really popular that started that process off. And then, Reverend Ike then became real famous with it up in Harlem. But people don't understand that which they were speaking about then is that which is said with Tony Robbins and all the rest of these guys. They're taking those principles that were taught by those people, by those that had that so-called prosperity gospel, and then they took out the religious aspect and kept it secular, and they're building on that particular process for the people. They're teaching the same aspects and elements. It's very, very interesting. It's very interesting.
Please forgive me. I can't type.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I will say that one thing that is also a consideration of power is we have to begin to watch what we manifest within ourselves in our speech. Our speech can either give us the blessings of more, or it can actually hinder us and not allow us the opportunity to expand. So, Ifa says that we have to remember that the use of words in Ogunda Meji, we have to remember that the use of words has two opposing aspects, and they are functions really, which determine the state of the human mind. Our words can determine which way we're thinking. It brings war or peace. So you have the ability of good and bad, or separation, union to speak. The union to speak, to listen. All those things come in what we speak about. So even when you think about the president and you think about all these guys passing laws and all of that, think of the power of the words that they speak. And we, as those that are listening, are at the mercy of the power of the words that they speak. Now, those that desire or are willing to fight against that, listen to the words that they speak. So then you got the two opposing forces, and we've been able to change many things from the original laws and all that stuff put down when the voices became in unison. just like what's happening now. Now, last night, it seemed, or yesterday afternoon, another person got killed over in Minneapolis.
Yes, I want
from a
to.
traffic stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that carried over today into the Chauvin or whatever his name is trial, because the defense lawyer wanted to sequester the jury and also stop them from being able to look at media and different things, because they saw how what's getting ready to happen out there if things don't go well.
Yeah, and after Rodney King and Latasha Harlins and, you know, all the tragic events of the last 2 years, it's going to be ugly. We're being pushed beyond protesting, beyond marching, beyond carrying signs. We all know that there's a segment of our society that wants conflict, that wants race war, that wants, you know, upheaval. They think that somehow that's a shortcut to a better state of being. We had to end this system by any means necessary and then recreate, you know, sort of a new system. No matter which side you're on, the white supremacist side, the black side, no matter which side you're on, sort of at the foundation, that's the message. So there are segments of our society that want to keep these conflicts going. It's beneficial to them. It's financially beneficial to them. You know, that it's in front of the camera. It helps to move aspects of our economy. It also helps to distract us from other real, much more dangerous things that often take place, you know, in the courthouses and in legislators when these sort of upheavals occur, you know, in culture. So while we're focusing in on quote unquote riots and protesting, you know, they're having secret meetings, you know, in Washington, D.C. and writing things into law and protocol that we aren't paying attention to. So I think, again, some of these, you know, events are mere distractions, but created distractions. I also want to note real quick how interesting, I think they said 100 to 200 protesters, and then they called in the National Guard. Where was that January 6th? Where was that response January 6th? Anthony says, hypothetically, if slavery never happened, would initiation be a coming of age kind of moment for most? Or would it be something you're just assigned at birth, like a birthday or a zodiac? You want to respond to that first, or you want me
Sure. There's no problem. So initiation, in regard to, I believe what you're asking, initiation is something totally different than that. Yes, when they're born, or 7 days after they have Efuntade, 3 days, 7 days, to be given the name and to do divination on the child, to see what their destiny, what they came here to fulfill, and the way that a parent can go about raising that child that would be in alignment for that child to be moving towards their highest destiny. So after that initiation, then it is to actually totally align yourself with the either the Orisha or the Orisha, because Orunmila is still Orisha. So to align yourself with Orunmila, or to align yourself with any of the Orisha that you have to initiate to, and then to be walking in alignment with the, I want to say, just walking in alignment with the energy of that particular Orisha, so that Orisha is helping you in yourself, in your mind, in your thoughts, in your actions, and how you, all about that, in how you're going to live your life in accordance to what Orisha told you that you were here to fulfill. So initiation would always be a part. It's not something that would not be a part of the tradition or of people's growing. So whether it was through the slavery thing or not, the initiation still would be happening. They continue to happen over in Africa, and you know, so therefore the initiations are a totally different entity than anything to do with slavery from my perspective.
I agree. From a Louisiana, Mississippi Delta voodoo perspective, you mentioned really two things. Coming of age is one thing. Initiating into Loa, receiving a Loa or a Risha on your head is a whole nother thing. And as my cousin said, maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes ago, he was talking about how each power is their own school, has their own protocol, has their own rules, has their own way of doing things. And in some cases, even the order of seniority within the dynamics of the Odu shift from one lineage to another, from one path to another. So coming of age, I think, should be, mandatory for anyone, like Quinceañera in the Hispanic community, is automatic. Like Bat Mitzvah, in a Jewish tradition, is automatic in terms of coming of age. And that's one thing. But then initiating into the tradition and then accepting the responsibility of caring for an Orisha or Loa is a much more complex undertaking. And so that's a completely different, form of initiation. There are branches of the tradition where one could also then be initiated into based on age, experience, position, title, sometimes out of necessity. Divination will require you to receive the knowledge and the awareness, of a particular power or entity. And so therefore there's an initiation associated with that. Another common question I'm confronting is the distance in terms of time between coming into the tradition, starting your spiritual journey, or being initiated and then being a practitioner. And many people are going straight from, I had a spiritual awakening a month ago and now I'm doing readings. That's dangerous.
That's very dangerous.
Okay.
Yeah. There in regard to that, I will share in our particular lineage, my lineage from, and let me give honor to my Aluo, Oba Kabiese Fikbeme Fashea from Sola. In our particular lineage, we go from, wanting the initiate to go to Ishefa, and then from Ishefa, then Ifa will dictate where that person is needing to go. Ifa will dictate whether that person is even in line for priesthood, So it is wise that Ifa is speaking to somebody and that they're not just going out there to think that they can make those choices and decisions on their own without the proper training, without proper tempering, without proper knowledge and study before they start going into doing some kind of readings. That's it's not just dangerous for the person, but they're putting other people's lives in danger. They're putting people's lives in danger. There's certain things that you got to go through in order to begin to do readings and to go to a deeper level of understanding in the verses. So by not going through that you're putting people's lives in danger, and you're making it so that's why for some, even in our tradition, it becomes a mockery because they hear all these babalaos in their inbox and all that stuff. Even I just saw something that came over here, and you got babalaos coming in people's inboxes, knowing that they ain't righteous or wanting the best for people, doing readings, coming up in their inboxes and making a mockery, and because people think that they have a Yoruba name, that they are initiated and all of that. So therefore, there you are. You now think, and people have been having money taken from them and all that, and these babalaos ain't doing a damn thing for them. And in fact, they might not even be babalaos.
That's right. They might not even be African.
That's right.
Based on what I see on these profiles, you don't know who these people are.
That's right.
They never show their face. And if they do show a face picture, you don't know that it's theirs. Especially when we think of places like Africa, India, South America. I mean, millions of people look exactly alike. You know, mix it up and they, you know, a few pictures with some tourists having some work done, you know, and then there's a series of products that they're wanting to sell and offer. I've never known an authentic Awo who operated like that ever. I've never known an authentic Babalawo who had to advertise like that, who had to do what you just mentioned, aggress themselves, Baba Alawo, into the chat, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already blocked him on Facebook, so it won't be any more comments from him. But you hit that right on the head. And unfortunately, it goes back to us. We are not willing to do the work to learn what these traditions are really about. It's much easier, especially when you're in pain. I just want to fix the problem. I'm not trying to learn this. I just want to fix the problem. That's too much to memorize. I just need you to help me with my issue. I'm not trying to learn a new language. And that's the problem. That's the problem. So, and then when it don't work, some of you are quick to move on to the next one.
That's right.
Another great deal of money. And I noticed to be a fact, because many of my clients, we spend the first 15 minutes talking about what they've done, where they've been, how much money they've already spent, what was said, what happened, what didn't happen. And when you are authentically operating in these traditions, the omission of words, the omission of practices, the omission of certain traditions that we all know to be universal, that's a red flag for us. You know, but because you might not be willing to read enough books, to get some advice from an elder, to reach out to someone who's, you know, to be authentically operating in the tradition, then that process of throwing good money after bad, like my grandma used to say, you know, and being tricked, you know, that's Legba. And that's why I say the trick in Legba is not that he's seeking to hurt you or trip you up. The trick is ego. The trick is ego. Legba is quick to show you when you're operating in your ego. You think you know what you're doing, when you think you got it down, when you're not willing to listen to good advice, when you're not willing to accept, you know, the counsel of the elders. Legba is quick to show you that that's where the trick comes in. My godmother, may she rest in the room, Mama Yeye, she used to say, not only did she say, baby, you rested on your ancestors, but she would say that all those trips and tricks, that's now part of your Ebo. She'd say that's now part of your Ebo. Some of us need to bump our head. Some of us need to learn the hard way. Some of us are too quick to want it now. So spirit makes us try and try again, makes us go to the left, makes us go to the right. It's almost like, you know, the old martial arts movies that were not just physical martial arts, but very psychological.
That's right.
You know, full of tricks, you know, and nuances that tested not only your commitment to the process, but your ability to think. Think. To just suspend all of that, what we think we know, and just think and be open to seeing and hearing what might be presented. That's the trick. That's the trick that people associate with Eshu and Papa Legba. Ego. And so, yeah, they're waiting on you. They're hoping you don't do your homework. They're hoping you just want a quick fix. Oh, Kevin Brooks, my apologies. I also work with not just Loa, I work with Abisson, and I work with spirit powers of other ethnic groups and other traditions. However, I don't work anything that I'm not qualified to work. So whether it be Loa, because your question is, how do I determine whether I work with Loa or Orisha? What have you been initiated in? What have you been trained in? And in my case, only speaking for my house, what is in most alignment, agreement to your lineage, to your bloodline? See, some people unfortunately believe that everything in the Western world is Haitian voodoo. It's just not true. Some people believe there wouldn't be no voodoo in Louisiana if it weren't for Haitian Revolution. That's not true. Some people believe Haitian Revolution brought voodoo to New Orleans. That is not true. There were enslaved Africans here in Louisiana 100 years before the Haitian Revolution. They didn't forget how to count. If you can remember how to count, you can remember your ritual days, you can remember your drum patterns, you can remember how to acknowledge your deities and your ancestors, if you can remember how to count. So they're only now being forced to learn how to count in French and Spanish, if we're talking about Louisiana. So there's no way Haiti brought voodoo to New Orleans. It was already here and went underground. And to make it worse, the Haitian Revolution is what fed the Black Code, which created rules like they can't drum, they can't gather, they can't be out together in public without paper. All that came after the Haitian Revolution, because now the fear is that they get together, they're going to create insurrection. So check your bloodline. Who are your people? That's something we say just naturally in New Orleans, who your people is, who them is. People deeply want to know who your people are in Louisiana. And that's an African tradition.
That's right.
Who birthed you? What are the mores of the environment that you came out of? And so that's how we determine path and lineage. In my house, check your background. And then I'll point you, I'll send you to my cousin. I'll send you to Haiti. I'll send you to the people who mirror what's in your bloodline. But the idea of working more than one path, more than one tradition. Some people on my TikTok had questions about the placement of some things in my shrine room. There's a way in Lukumi that things are placed. Certain deities don't go next to certain deities. Certain powers, like Eshu, belong in a certain location, and that's familiar to Akan. That's familiar to Ewe. That's familiar to Kandable. That's familiar to anywhere you find this umbrella of ATR in the world. So here in Louisiana, always been a port city. We've been exposed to Orisha. That's how Orisha ended up in Hoodoo. It's because we were already exposed to the Yoruba and their traditions in Louisiana. So certain deities, Shango, Yemaya, Oshun, Eshu, those deities made the Middle Passage and first settled in Cuba, but then many of those enslaved Africans brought that to Louisiana. And so that's why you see Orisha in Louisiana voodoo. But you also see Oloye in Louisiana voodoo. So there is a mixing. My godmother used the word amalgamation that you see happening anywhere in the New World where the seeds of Fa, Ifa were laid. You see that manifestation. As we discussed yesterday or on the previous show, I really cannot suggest working with deities you have no marriage to, no relationship to. See, in voodoo, we say marriage. You have to not only be initiated, but then you have to marry Oloye in voodoo. There's a ceremony, there's a ring, there's witnesses, there's a preacher, there's a marriage that takes place. In Ifa, in its various demonstrations, Santeria, Lukumi, Nago, you can either be crowned or receive the mysteries of the secrets of a deity on your head. And so that's the most appropriate way to work with any system. And just so I'm clear, I don't mix them up. There's a very specific way I work with Shango if I'm doing Ifa. There's a very specific way I work with Shango if I'm doing voodoo. I don't mix the paths. So yeah, you can be well versed, you can be knowledgeable, you can be trained, Kevin Brooks. But what determines is what you've received and what your lineage is. We got about 15 minutes, beloved. So I'm open to your questions, your comments.
You got one from Anthony X, I think is a good question. Who is Ifa? Who speaks in Ifa divination? And can you speak to spiritual training before initiation? Well, Ifa is not a who. Ifa is the divine wording, this verses, the scriptures from Oludumare down to Orunmila to all of us. That's the 200, the Ifa 256 verses, the chapters, the books, right? You have 16 main from Ogbe down to Ofun, Parisha, and then from there they intermarry to develop the other 240. So now you have 256 books per se of the Ifa oracles. Who speaks in Ifa divination? Orunmila, right? Those are the Odus. You start off with Eje Ogbe, and now in different traditions it might be in different orders, but from Eje Ogbe, Oyeku Meji, Iwari Meji, Idi Meji, Eroson Meji, Owanrin Meji, Obara Meji, Okanra Meji, Ogunda Meji, Osa Meji, Ika Meji, Otorapan Meji, Otora Meji, Irete Meji, Oshe Meji, and Ofu Meji, Orangum Meji. Those 16 then intermarry together. Ogbe might marry Oyeku. Oyeku marry, Ogbe. That you therefore become 240 more. The other question was who speaks through the Orisha? Speak through the Odus. The even ancestors, they speak. All the entities speak through the Odus. That give you the message. You'll hear often when you're getting a reading, the Babalawo will say, Ifa says such and such, such and such, such and such. You'll hear and then associate that Oshun was in this Odu. Obatala was in this Odu. So when you're reading it, there'll be certain things that are said, you need to receive Obatala. You need to we need to give offering to ancestors. We need to do this or do that. So all speak through the Odu. Do you remember the third question on that?
Let's go back.
The spiritual training before initiation. Okay, so a person comes in, they do their initial reading. The reading says this person is in alignment for priesthood at a later time. Okay, so we'll say no problem. This says you can receive Ishefa, receive hand of Ifa, and before that time, you can be working with the Babalawo on different things, Ifa, whatever, on different things until you can afford your Ishefa. But when you get your Ishefa, it allows you to have maybe a little deeper training that will lead you to your Itefa, which is your priesthood initiation, or if Ifa says previous to that he might want you to initiate to Orisha first, then the training that you get in Ishefa allow you to train and get the knowledge before going into priesthood initiation. So according to whatever temple, Ile or whatever, it will give, some might have distinct things that you need to know before you initiate into priesthood, or some will say, okay, these basic things are things that you learn, and now you can move into initiation, going into whatever. And then you begin the distinct training towards the Orisha or an Ifa to lead you to begin the process. Because when you first get the initiation to priesthood, that is still not the time that you go right into doing work for people. You have to be able to do the work for yourself and see the changes in what you are doing for yourself, and then continue the process of the training with your Aluo, Ianifa, whatever the title might be, until they say it's time that you, or Ifa says that it's time for this, time for this, time for this. And now we go into even deeper level training in order for you to be able to do readings. So, I hope that begins to answer that question for you.
Yeah, and I think, listening to you, I think there's another question that I don't hear asked, but it really should be addressed. And again, that is people seeking readings and divination from people who are operating in these traditions, who only have answers about what's going on right now in the media. Because I heard you say, for instance, the Odu might suggest that you need to receive Obatala, or you need to receive, a hand Ifa. Some people think we just pushing services. Some people think we just trying to encourage people to sort of join in, to our party, for lack of better words. So I think, how committed are you to these traditions? This is what I ask my clients. How committed are you to these traditions? Is this something that you can see you and your spouse, you and your children practicing? Are you prepared to be visible? Are you prepared that your family might have questions about certain changes in your look, and your behavior? We discussed that, because this is a lifestyle. So it's not just going to the tarot reader, going to the fortune teller, read my palm, and then you go back to your life, which for many of you is still Christian and Judaic and Islamic. But often your ancestors will demand commitment from you. The Loa Risha will demand commitment from you, and they can be offended. Sometimes a reading will say you have problems with Oshun. You have problems with Oya, and that needs to be addressed. It also is a symbolic reference to those hidden inner shadow work within ourselves that we often don't want to address. Some Orisha have human-like personalities, and I don't see that as a weakness in Orisha. I see that as a mirror of humanity. They have certain human qualities about them, such as being offended, which are human offenses. So, when you get that sign, it says you must receive, you must initiate, you must acknowledge, your ancestors. We aren't selling. It is indeed a part of the revenue, a part of the ebo, a part of the fix, a part of the repair. And I like to do things that are long term. I'm sure my cousin would agree. I don't believe in the spell. I'm not trying to do things that work today so that you're forced to call me again tomorrow, because I ain't got that kind of time.
That's right.
My phone is already ringing. I'd rather fix it, kill it, dead it, renew it, repair it. And then that's long-term stuff often. So I'm asking people to make a commitment. I'm asking people to stick around. We are suggesting that we're going to be present for you. We're going to be here for you on your journey. Because unlike a fortune teller, we can't just give out advice and then next. We can't do that. You and I, cousin, we can't do that.
That's correct.
We got prayer and ritual that we have to acknowledge
every morning.
Every morning.
That's right.
Every morning. It don't just affect the client, it affects the reader.
That's correct.
So if the sign is dark for you, it's dark for me too. And so then we have to do preparations for that. So it is a lifestyle. It is a way of being. It's more than a ritual. It's more than a spell. It's more than a quick wash and then going back to your regular life where you picked up the contaminant in the first place. We have to make changes. We have to stop doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just, practice this in the closet or in the dark.
That's right.
Or when we're suffering and in pain. We have to embrace this like a relationship. See, I don't like friends who only want to see me after 11 o'clock at night and not out in public. Some of you dating women probably have that same rule. Don't call me after a certain time of night. And if we dating, we out in public. We not dating where nobody can see us. But that's the kind of relationship folks want with Oloye. That's the kind of relationship people want with Orisha. They come knock on my cousin's door. I'm in pain. Can you help me? But shh, don't tell nobody I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
We got to grow beyond that, and so that creates that gap where problems reoccur.
That's cool.
Where Jinn come back, where Ika keeps stalking you. Did that create? Oh, I had a divination, IleIfaOladeji, yesterday. IleIfaOladeji. And she had seen another Babalawo, a Nigerian Babalawo, an authentic Babalawo, who gave her that Odu. He was too scared to help her. From the way she described it, he was too scared to help her. He didn't know how to handle it. He didn't like the vibration of Iyami being embedded in that sign. And that's how he ended up feeling hurt to me. But, we've got to do more than just, and I'm sure you have the same position as I do. I'm not here to be a fortune teller, though I can read fortunes. I'm not here to be a psychic reader, though I have psychic and the ability to read and to see. But to run an Ile or to run a house is to run a ministry. It's a whole nother level of activity, within the traditions. And so anyone who comes in this anew, that's the ground that you start on. Doing that work, doing that activity. No one comes in an Iyanifa. No one comes in a Babalawo. That's the equivalent of having a spiritual transformation in December and reading tarot cards in January.
Yeah.
Same equivalent.
Yeah. And there's different philosophies on that too. I've seen many Babalawo, many Iyanifa, maybe a couple Babalawo who continue to do tarot. And then for another perspective, they'll say that you don't do tarot anymore when you do Babalawo. Do Ifa, because Ifa is at a different place, at a different level. And so, you just really should be listening to the lineage that you are in and the Babalawo or Oluo that you're working with, and then try to stay in alignment with the Ile, with the tradition that you guys do, in the lineage that you guys do, because it's important, to have some kind of continuity, and so it's just important to know from the person that you're working with. There shouldn't be a Babalawo that's scared to do something with a particular Odu. You go to an elder if you don't understand or you don't know. You go to the elder and say, this dropped, this Odu dropped, and that elder then would say, that's a rough Odu. We need to do A, B, C, D, and E. So this is the things that you tell the client, and this is the work that has to be done. And if the client's willing to do the work, then this is what we need to do. And if the client's not willing to do the work, there's nothing, you can't force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do anyway. I don't try. And so therefore it's like, okay, just understand this is a rough Odu. So some things might be starting to go this way and that way for you. But if you decide to do this Ebo, then, come back and let me know. And I call it a day on that. A true Babalawo is not going to try to force you. He will say it's important that you do it. And if you don't do it, I can't promise that things are going to get better anytime soon. And even when you do Ebo, it might not clear up just like poof and everything is clear. It might take some time to clear, but you've energetically put the sacrifice in it. And then the other thing, the biggest thing, is you got to first be able to do the sacrifice within inside of you. The sacrifice inside of you sometimes is just as important or more important than the sacrifice that is being done. So what is your commitment? Just like you asked, what's your commitment to making the change that you need or desire in your life? If this is the difference between your life becoming, I want to say successful, but that's not the word, things clearing up, and then this continuing, and you are already in a bad situation, you got to make the investment, the sacrifice to do this, to get it done.
Anthony, the first childhood memory I have is about voodoo. Voodoo was both revered and reviled in my family. One part of my family, supported it, enjoyed talking about it, enjoyed recounting the history and the stories of it. Another part of my family went in the direction of not just evangelical Christianity, but also Jehovah's Witness, large segments of the family. So I grew up hearing Loa. I grew up being introduced to Orisha in the elementary school. So I guess you could say I had a choice between ATR or staying in Christianity. I was a successful minister of music. I could have went on and done things in that arena if that was indeed my destiny, but it was not. And I don't know how familiar, Anthony, you are with my story, but I was on the street at 14. I didn't have a choice. And so in being on the street at 14, the elders and people who saved me, rescued me, were often involved in voodoo and Orisha and ATR practice. And so I had an alternative presented to me than going down, the wrong road or becoming a statistic. And so I had a choice. And so I credit voodoo with saving my life. And so that's where my commitment. His second question, cousin, is what kept you on the path? The fact that it saved my life and it was demonstratable, that's what kept me on the path. I could see it. I could see it work. I could see the work being duplicated, which was scientific proof for me. And that kept me on the path. But voodoo saved my life.
So the first question is, how did I get involved in it? I actually got involved through martial arts, to be perfectly honest with you. I was going through some trials and tribulations with a particular relationship, and I was really having it was difficult. And so a friend of mine suggested that a person that was there at this event could help him, that was coming to the event could help me. And he was a senior Babalawo. And so I've never had experience in the tradition before, but I was like, I don't have nothing to lose. So he did basic divination, and everything that he said was exactly what I was going through without me telling him what I was going through. That already, I was shaking and nervous, but in hearing him talk all this truth, I was like, I have to give this a try. And so I started off with it and did what he asked me to do with the Ancestral Altar. So I started off with the Ancestral Altar. I did that for years because I couldn't find a Babalawo to work with. So I stayed with doing that for some years until my current Oluo, until the current Oba. I knew him through martial arts too, until he did his thing, and then I went in under him, and I have remained under his Ile up until this time. And so I just maintained because I saw the differences in my life and how I was able to improve.
Asheo, give thanks. It's been a powerful 2 hours, beloved.
Yes.
It dragged on a little bit in the beginning, up until about 1 o'clock, but it definitely picked up. And I'm grateful to all the lively participants. Fatih, Mayat, Anthony, London, Bagati, the Goddess Initiative, all of you all who asked questions, Sean Wynn, and participated in the show. Fati Ma'at Reed, indeed, Hoodoo also was alive and well practiced. I can do a whole show on Hoodoo. Hoodoo has gone through some transformations. And so I'll talk about
10
that
seconds.
in a coming broadcast. But I'm grateful for you all and your consistent love and support and participation. I pray that you all are reaching out to my cousin, those of you who are indeed seeking authentic Ifa direction. I'm also grateful for those of you who continue to reach out to me. I'm grateful for your continued support, your love, your commitment to these practices and these traditions. Thank you so much, Valerie Littlefield Taylor. We'll be in communication shortly, beloved. I'm going to allow my cousin to close, and then I will meet you here next time at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time.
I just say that we give honor to Ifa, to Orisha, to our ancestors, and pray that your prayers will always be answered, and that you guys will live with abundant blessings in all of your lives. So blessings, and thank you, cousin, again, for allowing me to be here and to learn, to grow, and to share. And for everybody else, we thank you for learning, growing, and sharing with both of us. God bless you.
Indeed. Thank you, Frida Nunn. Thank you, S. Marie. All is truly and indeed a blessing.
Yes,
Ashe, Asheo. Odabo.
Odabo.